Hello, and welcome to episode 12 of the White Lightning podcast. I'm your host, Ben Wheeler. We're in person this time. This is crazy. Crazy setup. I am Ben Wheeler. I'm joined here by Luke. Luke, what's up, man?
Buddy,
How you doing?
Good to see you, brother.
Dap up on camera.
Good stuff, man.
But yeah, this is episode 12. We're gonna stick to the NBA. I really enjoyed our NFL episode, but
too. It was a good episode.
Yeah, once the finals are over, I'm excited to do it.
Yeah,
but
and, I'll be on probably a hiatus till you have a free agency episode for the NBA because I do not know what I'm talking about with the NFL.
Yeah, we're gonna dabble in everything this summer. You know, I was worried about what we'd be able to talk about, but there's gonna be a lot to talk about.
I'm still waiting on your coverage of the Stanley Cup.
That ain't happening. Sorry, guys. Any hockey fans out there, I will not be covering hockey. I'm sorry, I don't know enough. But we're gonna stick to basketball. The pinnacle of sports are happening. I have to talk about it. It's got to be the forefront of the episode.
In the history of the world is basketball. So
football exists.
No.
But anyways.
I played both. One's better.
The story of the day is the Nuggets rout the Heat at their home floor with the final score, Nuggets 109, Heat 94. Here's the recap. So it's a pretty back and forth first quarter. Both teams look energized. They look ready to go. Sure. Butler had 11 in the first. Jokic had 10. Final score at the end of the first, 22-22. From the second quarter onward, Murray continued to play great. He finished with 20 at halftime. Bam had a solid first half for them. And Jokic damn near has a triple-double at halftime. He has 14, 10, and 7. Yeah, he played very well. Denver up 53-48. So the turning point of this game was the third quarter.
For sure.
The Heat just kind of went ice cold out of nowhere, and the Nuggets stayed hot and aggressive. Jokic had 11 points in the third quarter, pretty much as he did in the first half.
His first half with one quarter. So
yeah.
Great showing.
Yeah, and the Heat went ice cold. Denver outscores the Heat 29-20 in the third quarter, and Denver's up 82-68 at the end of the third. And that's pretty much the game right there. I mean, going into the fourth quarter, Heat stayed cold. They tried to make a push there at the end, but it was too little too late. Denver maintained the lead, and the final score of the game, 109-94. Here's my takeaways, right?
Get it off your chest.
Here's my takeaways. Here's get it off my chest, right? I said before the series started, I said that I cannot see a scenario where the Heat can win this. I just couldn't see a scenario. And a stat to completely summarize my thoughts with this.
Go for it.
Was game 3, Nikola Jokic has 30 points, 20 rebounds, and 10 assists. That's the first time in finals history that somebody does that.
Yeah.
And his teammate,
Jamal Murray
leads them in scoring with 34 points.
4, 10, and 10.
And he has a triple-double himself.
First two teammates in the history of this, over 75 years, this league's been around. Not a single time has that happened in a game.
Yes, not the finals, not the playoffs, the entire history of the NBA of every level. And that was my point, Luke, was the Nuggets are by far the talented team.
Yes.
They have way more guys that are capable of doing stuff like that. They're taller, they're bigger, they're lengthier. Oh, by the way, they have the best player in the world, and I don't think it's particularly close anymore.
The gap just keeps widening with every game.
Yeah. And Jamal Murray, who I think has probably played better than anybody on that Heat roster this series.
I can't disagree with that, if
I'm
being honest. Pretty much all of Miami's role players have kind of fallen off the way they were expected to early in the playoffs.
Right.
And it's finally all coming together, and it's seemingly snowballing into a crashing effect right now in the finals, which is, funnily enough, where they need them the most.
Right, exactly.
And if they have a chance, they need Tyler Hero back.
Yeah.
That's a big thing. He's a 20-point per game scorer, and he's a guy that can create his own shot, adds a level of depth to their offense where he can get his own shot in addition to giving Jimmy and Bam some rest and some extra minutes on the bench.
Right. And again, it's exactly what you just said. The Heat are not only lacking a big scorer for them, Tyler Hero, but they're lacking the talent that they just can't match up with the Nuggets with.
Yeah.
And I thought it was funny too, Luke. I said before the series is that it depends on who supporting cast plays better, right?
Yeah.
Denver's supporting cast isn't really playing all that well. I mean, we're talking about a team that had multiple 120, 130-point games against the Lakers.
Yes.
KCP was averaging 15. Porter Jr. was averaging 15. They're a no-show this series. They're almost 10 points less than what they average against the Lakers.
The other thing I noticed is I think in this series, the Nuggets have shot pretty bad from three, too.
Yes.
They've been taking a giant leap downward in terms of their three-point field goal percentage, especially those role players, which that's kind of the crux of their offense is like they have the two-man game with Jamal and Jokic. And then outside of that, they have their shooters to space the floor. And if those guys aren't making, they just have to keep spamming the 2-man game, which is working right now.
Right.
But eventually something is going to come up on the defensive end that's going to make them need to transfer it to a different offensive scheme. It's not going to last.
For sure. I think if they want to close out this series, those guys obviously have to show up.
Yes.
But bizarrely enough, they haven't really had to. I mean, again, I don't think the Nuggets as a unit are playing all that great. I mean, game 1, they score 104. Game 2, they lose. They have 108. Game 3, they won with 109. They are not playing as good against the Lakers that they are against the Heat. They are playing worse now than they did against the Lakers.
Yes, but to be fair, you think about refs are letting a little bit more go. You have it's the finals. And this is a much more physical team they're playing against. The Heat are a much more physical brand of basketball than the Lakers were. Okay, you have Anthony Davis down in the post. AD's not the toughest of guys in my own opinion.
Yeah, right. I agree.
He struggles to be firm. He likes to space at the 15-foot spot, take some jumpers here and there. This Miami team, they don't care if they're 9 inches shorter than you are. They're going to be physical. Right. And that's a big difference in what Denver's playing against. And that's making a big difference in this series as opposed to that. So that's also a good reason as to why, they've regressed in their scoring a little bit. They're, it's game 3, so you should be adjusted by now. But at the beginning, it throws you off a little bit. Right. You're not used to playing against a real physical team. It's kind of like that rebound. You got to figure it out. And it's like, okay, now we're set. Let's get back to what we do. Yeah, and I totally agree. And we're seeing that now because the Heat are playing more physical. And obviously, as we've seen, it's affecting Denver on the offensive end. But what's crazy to me is that I don't think the Nuggets are playing as well as they did against the Lakers. And the Heat are kind of going ice cold. It's funny. I wanted to mention this last episode with Paul. Spoelstra mentioned after game 2 that he was like, yeah, we really don't live and die by the 3. But I thought this stat was incredibly interesting. The 11 best 3-point shooting games in this playoffs, Miami has 6 of them. Yeah. They kind of are living and dying by the 3 a little bit. I mean, they're definitely living by it. Yeah, right. I don't think they... Nicely put. Up to this point, they haven't died by it yet, but they have been living by it. Yes. The Celtics games, a couple of the first couple games in that series, they won because of 3-point shooting. Right. If they weren't as hot as they were, and if the Celtics weren't as cold as they were, we would have a completely different discussion about that 7-game series. It probably wouldn't have been up 3-0 and then come back, and then almost the most historic comeback on paper in NBA history. Right, right. It would have been a completely different discussion. Because just by purely 3-point shooting percentages. Yeah. That's the whole swing. And right now, the Miami Heat shot, I believe it was 45% from 3 in the playoffs up to this point. Yeah. They literally went from the 27th worst in the NBA to the 3rd best in the playoffs. And now they're finally starting to see that kind of level off and plateau. They're not shooting as pristinely as they have been in this final series now. So, and that's a big shift. Yeah, it's incredibly interesting because game 2, 4th quarter. We watched them score 36 points on 19 possessions. That was incredibly efficient. That's impressive. They shot 69% from 3 in the 4th quarter. That's the 3rd highest in a 4th quarter in the last 25 years. That's incredible. And that's my thing. I kind of to agree with you. They're not necessarily dying by the 3-pointer, but they've lived by it. They are as far as they are because of how incredibly hot they are. Yeah. And that's kind of my point. I think the only way that the Heat can really win this is if they go incredibly hot from 3, their supporting cast is going off, and Denver goes cold. But I think Denver's just playing normal, not their best, to be honest. Yeah. And they're still handling business, so I think that's really interesting. I'm a big proponent of the control what you can control mindset. Yeah. So when it comes to Miami and having a chance to win this series or even game 4 tonight, there's a couple things that I think they need to do. And that there are 3 key things that need to happen. First of all, Max Strus needs to step his game up. Yeah. He had a little bit better of a game in game 2, I believe. Yes. He's been relatively bad this entire series. He needs to step up and he needs to get some solid quality minutes for the Heat. That's number 1. Number 2, the Heat need to pick up the tempo. Yeah. If they play fast, Denver does not have a lot of experience rotating their lineups, getting more guys into the fold. And Jokic played, I think, 43 minutes, and Jamal Murray played 44 minutes in game 3. So they've extended them. These guys are going to be exhausted. If you get up and down the floor more and increase the pace of the game, that's going to create more time where you have mismatches and you can get those stars off the court. Finally, Miami Heat, you need to be more aggressive in getting to the line. If you can get about 6 or 7 more free throw attempts per game, that's going to negate the offensive edge that Denver has when getting a few extra free throws. And if you make those free throws, you can put yourself in a position to win the game at the end of the game. And it's not going to be you're down by 15. Instead, you know, you make 5 extra free throws, you're down 10. And then those 2 threes that Duncan Robinson hits at the end of the fourth quarter, that brings you 6 or 4 or wherever you need to be. And you're in a lot closer of a situation than you were in game 3.
Right. And I'm really glad you brought up Max Strus, because that's a supporting piece.
Yeah.
And I mentioned before, the Heat are at their best when they got 5 to 6 guys in double figures. Like what you said, they're playing physical, they're playing aggressive. I mean, we're talking about a game 3 where Butler had 28,
yeah.
who was inefficient, who I don't think he's having that good of a series.
It was not a great showing. It was a solid showing.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But he needs to be great if this Heat team wants to win.
And absolutely. And to get with your supporting cast point, their third highest scorer was Caleb Martin with 10.
He's been gone this whole series.
And
I haven't seen him.
We've mentioned that in the past. We're talking about a guy that averaged 20 points in the Eastern Conference Finals. And he averaged the most points off the bench since Vinnie Johnson 25 years ago. We're talking about a guy that's been completely a no-show pretty much this series. Like what you said, Max Strus, where's he been? Where has he been? We watched him 2 months ago push the Heat in the playoffs against the Bulls.
Yes.
So exactly what you said. Not only does the supporting cast have to play better, they're the best when they got 5-6 guys contributing.
Yeah, and when that's happening, it's great. I watched that Bulls game that you were just talking about. Strus put in, I think, 3 threes in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
That's the reason they're in the playoffs.
Right.
Without Strus on this team, they're not where they are right now.
Yeah.
And it's those supporting pieces. Like even Gabe Vincent, he had the first 2 games he played fine. He had a rough showing in game 3.
Yes, he did. He did not play well.
So he needs to bounce back here in game 4. This whole supporting cast needs to contribute a little bit more, get more quality time, not worried about the number of minutes, but how those minutes impact the game. And, you know, one guy that stepped up just the tiniest little bit last game was Kevin Love. He took a charge.
Former Cav?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
He took a charge. He dropped in 2 threes. He did his thing, and he provided a little bit of veteran leadership to this team. So that was a nice addition for them. It wasn't enough to get him over the edge, but it helps.
Yeah, he played really good minutes for them in game 2. Like what you said, he does the little things, you know, boxes out, gets rebounds, plays solid defense, takes charges.
For sure.
You know, at least good defense in the paint. I question his perimeter defending.
Yeah.
But we mentioned this just
he locked down Curry.
For 15 seconds, he did lock down Curry. I will give him credit for that.
2016.
Right.
That.
Right. Just a couple seconds ago, you mentioned Butler.
Yeah.
And I want to kind of lightly talk about him as well. This is a guy that's not had that good of a series. And I mentioned in game 2, they go as far as he plays and has it, you know, the supporting cast has to be there, but he has to play better. You know, he's been inefficient. He was 11 for 24 on Wednesday night. Butler's the best when he can give you 25. Oh, and by the way, he's efficient when he does it too. Yeah. He's not a shot chucker. We've seen so far he's kind of chucking shots and he's not making them.
If he can get to 25 points on less than 15 shots from the field, that's a great night for him.
Right.
That's the level of efficiency he needs to get himself to, because that means he's chipping in a couple of points here and there on free throws as well.
Right.
So add all those things up. Give Jimmy a good productive. That also gives him more opportunities to distribute the ball. And get those assist numbers up. He's been relatively low on his assist numbers this series. If he can get that up to 7 assists per game for the rest of the series, that's going to be a big thing in terms of them being able to make this a 7-game series and potentially win it.
Yeah, and that includes the supporting cast hitting the shots that when he does pass him the ball. Yeah, 15 shots a good number, probably around 20-ish since he's your star player. But our point stands, you have to be more efficient. No matter if it's 20 shots, 25, 15, you got to be more efficient. Yeah. No, I totally agree. And again, just kind of my closing thoughts. I told you before the series starts, I can't see a scenario where the Heat win this. I'll still stand on that. I have the Nuggets in 5. I mean, have your viewpoints changed a little bit? I mean,
after game 2, I started to have I shifted from its Nuggets 100% to its Nuggets like 98%.
Right.
So it's like there's a sliver of hope. After I watched them win game 2, I was like, there's something they could do this, but a lot of things have to go their way. And to this point, a lot of things have not gone their way.
Yeah.
So as it stands right now, unless some things turn around and the right dominoes fall at the right time, I don't see a way Miami wins this series. But boy, am I rooting for it. This is the first finals in, I think, a decade that I'm okay with either team winning.
Yeah.
I'm just here to watch fun basketball.
Yeah, and that's what I told Paul. I said, this is crazy. For the first time, probably my whole life, I'm impartial to who wins the finals. I mean, truly. I mean, with the Cavs, you wanted nothing more but oxygen to see the Warriors
my gosh,
lose,
yes,
you know,
of course.
and it is nice. It's relaxing for sure.
The nice thing about that is I love both of these clubs because both of these ball clubs play such a good brand of basketball. You know, you have the Denver Nuggets who have been, you know, working themselves up for such a long period of time, making things work, getting the right trades, making the right draft picks. And they're finally getting the payoff of being in the finals for the first time in franchise history. And then you have the Miami Heat. I love Heat culture. I'm not a Heat fan per se,
The culture is great. Yeah.
Just looking at the way they play, it reminds me of the mentality I had when I played in high school. And, you know, all the times I step onto a court, I'm like, I'm here to take care of business.
Right.
That's what I'm here for. I'm not here to have fun or play around. I am here to win.
Right. Yeah.
And they will do that, and they will give the effort required, and they will go for the loose balls. And that's just what the Heat are. So it's exciting to see these two teams get the payoff of being able to showcase that to, you know, NBA fans, as opposed to watching, you know, a star-studded Lakers versus Celtics series, which I know a lot of people wanted, but it's not as tough of a brand of basketball.
No, for sure.
That's what I appreciate about this series.
For sure. And like what you said with Heat culture, like, you got to tip their cap off to Pat Riley. He's a savant. Spoelstra, he's probably the best coach in the game. It's next man up for them. Yeah. They play hard. They dive for loose balls. They're aggressive. And like what you said, the Nuggets are cool too. This will be their first ring in history. And I think they will win it. And it's just nice to see. It's refreshing to see a new mix of teams.
Exactly. And then
we're going to lightly cover them a little bit. We're going to give our game 4 predictions at the end of the episode. But we have a couple topics that happened over the past couple days that I think are worth mentioning.
This is new news, people.
Yeah.
This is new stuff.
So Damian Lillard, I want to talk about him first, right? We have seen him on interviews the past couple of days, just on like, you know, just nothing official, but kind of just like, if I were traded, Miami would be really cool.
Yeah.
I really like Brooklyn. Boston would be cool. But he was also saying, you know, I still want to compete here in Portland. You know, I still think we have the right pieces and whatever.
They don't.
Here's where I'll rant. Okay, this is a rant right here. Here's my rant. If Portland ends up trading the number 3 overall pick, I truly think it sets their franchise back a decade. I really, truly do feel that way. And here's why. Listen. For the first time in maybe 15, 20 years, this is probably the best draft class we've seen in a long time. Victor Wembanyama, Brandon Miller, and Scoot Henderson, if they all were in the same draft class with each other, they'd probably all be number 1 picks. Yeah. And this is my point with the Trailblazers. What a perfect time to start a great rebuild. Yep. You get Scoot, who I love as a prospect. Can you imagine the package that you would get for Dame? Pretty similar to what we saw the Clippers give up for, you know, for Paul George and what the Thunder got. What is the point, truly, to trade the 3rd overall pick for Siakam? I know I saw him, or OG, or what, and be a first-round bounce? I don't get it. I don't get it. It's done. It's done. There's no need to compete anymore. I respect Dame's loyalty. It's great.
Yeah.
But can you imagine the rebuild? And I'll let you go.
No, go for it.
And can you imagine the rebuild that they would have at Scoot and the package that you can get for Dame? He said he liked Miami. Just imagine if they pulled off a package. Hero, Djokovic is like their bench guy that's up and coming. Caleb Martin you probably throw in there. I mean, it's just a perfect time for a rebuild. If they trade the 3rd overall pick, I'll be pissed. What do you think about that?
I think it's time. I've been hoping Dame leaves Portland for about 6 years now.
Yeah.
He's too good of a player to not accomplish anything. And sticking in Portland with what they've put around him, it feels like LeBron's first stint in Cleveland.
Right.
It's like they've tried, they have not been successful. They have gone with what they thought was going to work, and then it just has not panned out. And they clearly just don't have the right mindset in terms of how to get this team over the hump of getting, past the 2nd round.
Right.
They always win one series, and then that's it.
Yeah.
And then they get destroyed. The next series isn't even close.
Right.
So I'm hoping Dame gets out of there. Now, there were a couple potential targets for Dame to go to. I saw that the Heat and Nets were on that list. Same with the Clippers.
Yeah.
I have a different destination in mind for Damian Lillard.
Okay. All right. Well, we can fancy it. Let's hear it.
I think Damian Lillard would be a fantastic fit on the Milwaukee Bucks.
Yes, that's been a light rumor. I'd like to hear why.
I think because if you surround Giannis with a guy that can create his own. Okay, this is no offense to Chris Middleton. Chris Middleton is not as good as Damian Lillard.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Chris,
right.
You're what, a 2-time All-Star?
Yeah. Right.
He's a 2-time All-Star. You're a solid guy. Okay. Damian Lillard is in a different caliber. If you trade Chris Middleton and maybe 2 draft picks, or maybe find another bench guy deep in their roster, and you can get a package for Dame, that's going to put the Bucks in such a better position going into the next 3 to 4 years with Giannis's career at the point that it's at.
Right.
They've won a chip. They just fired their coach. They're ready for a new system. They bring in a new coach. Are they hiring Nick Nurse? Is that who I saw?
No, they hired an assistant from Toronto.
Okay.
Yeah. But he's been involved in stuff for a long time. So he's credible.
You got a new coach. You're going to have a new system coming in. What better way to do that than to bring in an all-star elite level point guard that can handle the ball, can create his own shot, can give Giannis a break.
Right.
That way his usage rate doesn't have to be so high, and he doesn't have to put his body on the line, which leads to, an injury that sets him out for the first 2 games of the series against Miami.
Right.
So if you put someone else in a position to be able to take that large offensive load away from Giannis, that's a great fit.
Yeah.
And that's the only prerequisite you need.
Right. No, and I totally agree. I like what you said at the beginning, and I like the Bucks. He deserves at this point to play for a contender. And guess what? No one is going to blame you for leaving.
Nope.
No one's going to call you a ring chaser. No one's going to call you unloyal. You gave everything you've had to Portland. It just didn't pan out. Let's move on.
There are a lot of guys that I would say, like, you're chasing rings.
Right.
Dame is not one of those people.
No. And my thing is, though, too, now I'm getting to the point where it's like, Dame, you're probably holding them back at this point from moving forward.
It's a negative impact on both sides of the coin.
Yes.
There's Dame, there's the organization, and they're both holding each other back right now.
Correct.
If Dame walks away, finds a new team, he might be able to finally find some success in his personal career, and the Portland Trailblazers might be able to, within the next 5 to 6 years, find some serious success from a franchise perspective.
Right. And nicely put, Luke. And I totally agree. I think the relationship's over, and it's okay. This isn't
a filthy bloodbath of a divorce.
Right.
This is we are both walking away from this, accepting the situation just didn't pan out.
Yeah.
It was a very successful marriage that only lasted, how many years has it
been?
Right. 10 years?
Yeah, about a decade.
It was a very successful marriage that lasted 10 years. It was not a failed marriage.
Yeah.
Okay.
It wasn't incredible either, right?
It is time for it to be over.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I totally agree. Yeah. And we're going to see as soon as the summer comes around, and we see it now. You see these websites where it's like, well, we don't know if Portland's selecting here, and I'll be interested to see what they do. And my final summary would be, I think it's just a really bad idea for all the reasons I said and for all the reasons you said.
Yeah, I don't know how, if you're the GM of the Portland Trailblazers right now, you can in good conscience trade this pick knowing what you're going to get.
Right.
One of those 3 guys.
Yeah.
And even if the Spurs screw it up and don't draft Wembanyama,
that ain't happening.
That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
But if for whatever chance, if that did happen and you had already traded the pick, you would probably just blow up your whole organization, fire everyone, and just bring in a whole new team.
Yeah. Right. But talking about guys moving and trades happening,
there's
another really interesting thing happened 2 days ago, and it might be nothing, it might be something. Chris Paul was waived by the Phoenix Suns.
It's something.
And I think it's interesting. And I think I saw some reports, and Woj and St. Shams said this. Mm-hmm. There is a growing interest that they kind of want to get back together. They didn't want to pay Paul his outrageous contract, but I saw that it is a possibility that he comes back.
He comes back to
Phoenix.
Okay.
Yeah. But I also think that some teams could pay him a good chunk of money elsewhere.
Yeah.
And you have a couple of teams that I think are really interesting. I'll let you take it, and I'll give my input on that for sure.
So the ones that jump out immediately, everyone is going to go straight to the Lakers. Mm-hmm. The Lakers need a point guard. They need someone who can shoot. Well, Paul fits one of those 2 things. Chris Paul is one of the best point guards in NBA history. He's second to none in distribution and being able to facilitate the basketball around the court. He lacks a little bit in 3-point shooting. He can add to their mid-range game, but they have enough of that with LeBron and AD.
Yeah.
I think it would be an okay fit. I would give it like a 5.5, 6 out of 10 in terms of the fit.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the other options are far more intriguing. Another 2 that I saw rumors about were the Clippers and the Spurs. I don't think that's the best landing spot for him. The place I think he needs to end up, and the place I think that will give both the success level to both Chris Paul and the organization he goes to is the Boston Celtics.
Yeah, and that was a rumor floated around heavily.
I mentioned this in the last episode I was on. We were talking about the Celtics and Heat series.
Yes.
And I was talking about how Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, they need a veteran point guard.
Right.
And Derek White and Marcus Smart they're both good players. Derek White, hats off to you, man. You played fantastic in that conference final series.
Right.
But he's not what they need at the point guard in order to find some success. Derek White can be a solid shooting guard, and he can be a starter next year. But if you can get Chris Paul, if you're the Celtics, you need a vet that knows what he's doing, knows how to handle intense situations in the playoffs, can distribute, can handle, and check all these boxes for you. And Chris Paul is that guy.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think all those teams are interesting. I kind of want to talk about the 2 or 3 that you said that I think were interesting.
Yeah.
1, Chris Paul to the Lakers. I will say this. I think it's a horrible fit. I think it makes 0 sense.
Would you give it a 10 on a fit?
Probably a 2.
A 2?
And here's why.
Right.
Here's why. The Lakers are already kind of older. The Lakers already are banged up. We're seeing LeBron and especially AD be banged up a lot.
Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, they kind of lack 3-point shooting. Oh, all the things that Chris Paul has. He's old. He's injured. We've seen him for the past 2 seasons. His health is unreliable in the playoffs.
It is.
Oh, and he's not really that good of a 3-point shooter. I mean, he'll make 1 or 2 a game.
Yeah, he's not a volume shooter though.
I just think the fit is bad. If Chris Paul was, again, for all the things I said, in a magical world where it's 10 years ago and he's younger, he's a better shooter and he's more reliable, I say let's run it. I'm very interested. But I just think the fit is awful because he brings exactly what they don't need right now.
Yeah.
You know, they need a point guard that can play you 70 games. That's reliable. That has a good shot. I mean, it would get headlines. And I would still sit down to watch to see how it would play out.
Watch a couple games.
Right. It causes chaos. It gets interesting, right? But I just think once it comes April of next year, and if that does go through, I just think it's a bad fit. Now, the 2 teams that I think are actually a good fit, I'm going to go to the Clippers real quick before I go to Boston.
Hit it.
Clippers, for the past 2 years, are lacking a point guard, somebody to run the offense. I like Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. I don't really love Kawhi Leonard. I think he's unreliable, and Paul George at this point. But my point is they can't run the offense.
No.
Chris Paul can at least get them into their offense. He plays, he's not that great at defense, but I don't think he's a liability. He can get you 15 points per game on a bad night, right?
He gets you 15-8.
Yeah,
15 and 8.
right. And I think that's what the Clippers need, actually, is a guy like them, if you still want to win, to run their offense and get it going.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They need those 2 things, and then they need someone who can reduce the turnover volume.
Yeah, right.
And that was a big problem. And people can hate on Russ all you want. Russ, he turns the ball over.
Yeah, right.
Russ tried his damnedest to get them through some stuff this year. And when PG and Kawhi aren't on the court, it's not enough.
And kind of similar to the Lakers a little bit is that they're also both banged up. So you're kind of adding a guy that's also banged up as well.
So I can't envision Chris Paul going back to the Lakers and having a ton of success, because every playoff run that Chris Paul has tried to make, especially in LA with the Clippers, every single run, either him or another star has gotten hurt.
Yeah.
Every single year.
Yeah. But your last team that I think makes a lot of sense and I really like is Boston. I mean, we talked about this in the Heat series on and off camera.
Yeah.
We're like, they lack that leader for them. They lack that alpha. I question Paul's, health, obviously, but he's a leader. Yes. He's an alpha. Mm-hmm. He can definitely teach Tatum the big moment. He can teach Brown the big moment. I'm still pro on blowing that team up a little bit, like I discussed last episodes, but if you still do want to compete, I like Chris Paul for them. He's a guy that, like what I just said, is an alpha, can get you in your offense, some reliable scoring a little bit. You don't need defense, really. You got Jaylen Brown for that, and Tatum's not a liability. And Colin Cowherd mentioned this, and I like too. Send Smart to Phoenix. Send Smart to Phoenix. Send Paul to Boston. Smart can give them the defense, which they desperately need.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah, just somebody that can be a streaky 3-point shooter. He plays 80 games a night.
Yep, exactly.
And like what Cowherd said, Tatum and Brown are pretty durable. They play 70, 75 games, except for the Tatum rolled ankle and stuff. But you don't really need Paul to play 80 games for them.
No.
So,
you don't.
He can
sit, he can get his rest, and he can maintain his body And it's a situation where he doesn't have to risk getting injured as
Right.
much as any of those other situations we've talked about.
Right. Yeah. No, I really like Boston. I'm glad you brought that
I'm
up.
going to toss this out here right now. If the GM of the Boston Celtics, Brad Stevens, is listening to this for whatever reason, I think you need to pick up Chris Paul. And I think as much as I don't like the guy I'm about to suggest you trade for, I think he would be a good fit if you bring in Chris Paul. I think you need to trade Jaylen Brown and you need to get Karl Anthony Towns on your team. You need a center. You need a center and you need a point guard. You have your star forward in Jason Tatum. Brown's a solid guy. But him and Jason Tatum, they're a 1-2 that don't know who the 1 and who the 2 is.
Nicely put. Totally agree.
So if you can break those two up, both of them can thrive on their own accord. And if you bring in Chris Paul, he's an alpha, but he's an older guy. So he knows that Tatum's the guy. And if you bring Cat in, Cat might actually, I don't know, win a couple games that aren't regular season games that don't matter.
Right.
I'm just throwing that out there. I think that could be a positive idea for all parties involved.
Yeah, and I mentioned this in multiple episodes many times. I'm leaning towards trading Jaylen Brown.
Yeah.
He's worth $290 million. He continues to underperform in the playoffs. He wants a big contract. He's underperforming. He has horrible ball handling. This is obvious. He's not a good ball handler.
His game 7 really hurt his stock in terms of contract wise. Now everyone's dogging him on his ball handling.
Yeah.
Which, it's not the greatest, but that game 7 was just worse than his usual.
More turnovers than the entire Heat team.
It was bad.
Right. And we mentioned these trades and these signings with Paul, Lillard, Brown, even. I'm glad we're talking about him a little bit because this new CBA, I know we keep on talking about this. And for the fans that don't know, what does it mean? Please go take some time out of your day to look it up. My summary is this. It's going to be a lot harder to form teams. The salary cap gets a lot more tight than it already was. And I think this summer, we're going to see teams more than ever get their star before this new CBA kicks in, because that's when things get interesting.
I think NBA GM's life's just got a lot harder with this new CBA. The luxury tax, the thing, I'm not going to get into all the jargon because I try and keep this digestible for everyone.
It would legitimately be an hour discussing it. Yeah,
it would. And that's the thing. With salary caps the way they are, teams are going to have to figure out ways to get guys to invest and take pay cuts to win a championship.
Right.
And if you can't get guys that will do that, it's going to be real hard to win a championship. So anyway, let's circle back to the current season, the last dance of the season. Not the last dance. That's a good show, but
this is game 4 predictions coming up right now. The game's happening tonight. We're filming this on Friday. Nuggets are 3.5-point favorites. I will say this. This is all or nothing for the Heat.
It is. If they lose this, they're done.
Right. This is all or nothing for the Heat. So I do foreshadow that it will be a good game. I could see this because the Nuggets are playing for their playoff live, or the Heat are playing for their playoff lives tonight, right? Nuggets are 3.5. I got them probably about 5, 6 points. I just think I got them handling business. I mean, and here's the funny thing. If the Nuggets do lose tonight, I probably still have them in 6 anyway, for all the reasons that I discussed in the beginning of the episode. But I have them in 5, meaning that I think they will win tonight then if I still got them in 5, and I'll stand on that. I think they handle business. I think they are able to withstand the Heat runs, and I think they get the win. I don't know what you think, but
here's my thoughts. I have a couple projections for you. First, it is going to be a close game.
I agree.
I don't think this is going to be more than a 5-point margin. I think it's going to come down to the wire, and I think it's going to come down to a last shot.
Yeah, okay.
So I think it's going to be 3-2 or 1-point difference.
Okay,
That is it. That is all the room I'm going to give because the Heat, their backs are against the wall. They have been in multiple situations where they have needed to pull something off, and they've done it.
Yeah.
So they are at the very least going to put a very competitive game together tonight, and that's going to be led by Jimmy Butler, who's going to have a double-double. And he's going to have a solid, potentially 35-point outing.
You think he's going to come up tonight?
I think Jimmy Butler is going to show up tonight. He has been having a bit of a rough go of it the past couple of games, and this is where he needs to show up in order for his legacy, effectively. He's made it twice. He's been in the Eastern Conference Finals 3 times in 4 years, the Finals twice in 4 years. He needs to get it done.
Yeah.
And if this is going to be another one of the situations like in 2020 where it's like Butler gave everything he possibly could, we can't blame him for losing. At the very least, that's what he should be shooting for right now. Obviously, he's going to shoot to win, but he needs to show up and have a great game tonight, and I think he will. I think he'll have a 30-point double-double. I think Jokic is going to fall just shy of another triple-double. I think he's going to miss out on 1 assist. He'll have 32 points. probably 11 or 12 rebounds, and I think he's gonna have like 9 assists.
Okay.
And
But who's winning though?
I think the Nuggets win.
Okay.
I think the Heat are going to do everything they possibly can. And honestly, I hope they prove me wrong.
Yeah.
But I do think the Nuggets will pull this out. I think Gordon's going to pop off tonight.
Okay.
I think Gordon has been a little quiet as of the past couple of games. He had one good first quarter, I think in game 2. He had like 12 points real quick. And then he didn't do much the rest of that, and not a lot through game 3. So I think Aaron Gordon's going to have a solid showing. And I think that's all I got for you.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I mean, I totally agree. Again, guys, I got Nuggets in 5, and I'll still stand on that. Nothing has changed to support my opinion. And I think it's stuff that's happened that's helped my opinion of Nuggets in 5. But we talked about a lot of stuff today, huh? What you think? Yeah.
Final thought. I think I'm going to go Nuggets in 6.
Okay.
I think the Nuggets win tonight. I think the Heat will win game 5, and I think the Nuggets will wrap it up.
Okay. Any other closing thoughts about Dame or Chris Paul or any other things you want to close on?
No, Brad Stevens, get Cat and Chris Paul on your team. That's it. I hate the Celtics with a burning passion, but from a logistical perspective, I think that's the best thing you could do this offseason.
Yeah. Yeah.
I will close with this. Damian Lillard, please leave Portland. Portland, please trade Dame. You're cooked. It's done. It's over.
I second.
You want Siakam and then you'll get the 7th seed and lose in the first round? Do you? Do you want Siakam? Do you want to lose in the first round as a 7th seed? Did I say 7th round? Let me repeat that. Damian Lillard and Portland. Do you want to trade the 3rd overall pick for a guy like Siakam
and be a playing team?
Get the 7th seed and lose in the first round. Would you like that? That's what I will close on.
All right.
How do you feel about that?
I think it's pretty accurate.
That was episode 12.
Oh,
That was episode 12 of the White Lightning
36,
podcast.
Man. This is
Yeah.
awesome.
Luke, thank you, man.
Back,
This
always,
is our first in-person episode. He was a lot of help to set up the setup. I
It's been a
appreciate
lot
it.
of fun, man.
Yeah, I
Hey,
appreciate
do
it, man.
you mind if I plug real quick?
Yes,
All
absolutely.
right, cool. Hey, if you guys are interested in gamings or anything gaming related, tune into my other podcast, The Gaming Goons. Me and my 2 cousins talk about everything from VR to free games on Epic to PC to console gaming. Anything you can think of, we're going to cover it, or we have already covered it. We just released our 13th episode, so we're going to keep them coming. We release new episodes Wednesdays at noon. And that's all I got for you. You can follow our socials at The Gaming Goons on Instagram and TikTok. Thanks.
We're both grinding. We're both grinding on this, man. Really. Tune in to Spotify for Gaming Goons.
Yes, sir.
Tune into YouTube and Spotify for the White Lightning podcast. I'm your host, Ben Wheeler. Luke, thank you very much.
It's been a pleasure.
Everybody, enjoy your Friday. Enjoy your weekend.